Welcome to Spoga Horse. Thank you for coming to Hall 7. Are you all doing well? Some of you have been able to get a snack in. Have you had a good day up to now? After our fashion walk, after our panel discussion, now we're going to tackle a very important topic. What kind of equipment is appropriate for animal well-being? This is a very, very important topic. We live in a bubble. We think, oh yeah, everybody knows about riding and equestrian sport, everybody does it, but outside, it doesn't always have a good image. So it's important how we present ourselves. What do we do for animal welfare? And this involves using the right equipment. So I'd like to introduce Andreas Gölkel from EquiCert. Hello, Annika. Hello. Hello, everyone. So we're going to talk about performance and animal welfare and the line between them and how that can best be harmonized. I'd like to introduce Karolin Leszinski from she's editor of the magazine ReiterRevue. Michelle Holtmeier from ehorses. Marvik Ebeling from the company freejumpsystem, and Georg Ettwig, who's head of marketing at the German Equestrian Federation.
Hallo zusammen.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's nice to see you all on this Spoga Sunday.
Wie gesagt, ein ganz wichtiges Thema.
So this is an important topic.
Du bist Redakteurin bei der ReiterRevue.
Caro, you're the editor of ReiterRevue. You've made your hobby into your profession. You grew up with horses in Upper Bavaria. Do you still ride? Not as much as I used to. It's become a hobby again. I write more about it. But I do ride, and I'm often in the stable, but not as much as I used to be. When you are at competitions, when you were competing professionally, were you ever asked from the public or from vets about your equipment? No, it wasn't asked from outsiders, but I did ask myself, not just about the equipment itself, but how I used the equipment myself. One keeps learning. I had a horse that I was very successful with. We made it up to M class. That's not top sport, but it worked very well. But the issue was that I sometimes I rode too roughly with a curb bit. This had an effect on the horse, of course, and I didn't notice it. I didn't notice what I was doing. I didn't think about it. I wasn't aware of it. So it meant that this equipment, the tag, was not really in the right hands in my case. So this is important that we took that and that we start with ourselves, of course. So I'd like to ask the others how it is with them. Michelle, You're a marketing manager at eHorses. You deal with horses. The platform sells, trades horses. You were a show jumper yourself. Let's ask you the same question. Did you have in competitions any critical moments or times when you were questioned yourself? I rode for years. I didn't have any critical moment involving my attack, but I did follow this topic as it affected me. I noticed things that happened, other things that happened to other people. And I thought, well, then of course I thought, is what I am doing correct? That helped me. Sometimes a judge would bring me up and say, okay, this is what you need to do. If maybe there's something involving the protocol. So sometimes you get critical points from the judges, and then I was able to say to myself that I need to remember these things for myself, even when it was happening to other people. Would you say that this topic is more critically seen as it was years ago? Oh, I think so. The media has made more of it. It used to be that you would just ask, well, what tag would I use? But now social media has so much input now. There's so many discussions. And if you follow this closely, there's much more public involvement than there used to be. So you are sales manager Europe at FreeJump. You were in retail for a long time. You were by Schockemöhle. You worked in sales there. You're an active jumper up to S-class. And you deal with top riders regularly with your company, FreeJump. Have you had moments? Well, I know this feeling of uncertainty very well. I was closely involved with young horse tests. Always had a situation that I'll always remember. When certain tag was when tag was changed for to better fit the horses, and I spoke about this with a judge and about the customer uncertainty about our products. Do you think this is okay, or are there questions about it? But I do know this feeling. And last but least, Georg, head of marketing and communications at the German Equestrian Federation, but you also have lots to do with horses. Personally, you grew up with horses. You rode for 30 years. Now your daughter rides. And you've won lots of prizes, lots of success at S level. Was this a topic for you when you were competing? Yes. Well, with active riding, it's been a while. It wasn't such a sensitive topic as it is today. By my federation, I have an additional qualification that I'm the head of a riding club in Warendorf. Then I took these courses so that I can assist the judges with the tests. And then I learned really how challenging that is to check if everything is really in order by these tests.
Ansonsten natürlich, wenn Pferdekontrollen waren, hat man sich immer damit auseinandergesetzt.
And in checking horses, I've never really experienced any conflicts.
Würdest du sagen, die geht heute sensibler mit dem Thema Tierwohl als das?
Would you say that now that your daughter is riding, do you find yourself more interested in this topic than you had been 30 years ago? Well, yeah, I think that it's people are looking more closely at it. The social media channels are they're heavy on criticism, and that's good. So, in my time, the tech was used that worked, that served a purpose. But that was a long time ago. This was 30 years ago. Well, almost, not quite.
5 Jahre.
Let's say 5 years. Something in between that. But you mentioned social media. Let's talk to you again, Karol. How do you work with this in social media area or in print, in media? Well, this is important in every issue that we put out. We give good educational tips that it's not just anything that will get clicks on social media, but that are good for horses. But really sound, good education with appropriate equipment. But animal welfare does play a large role. Last year we had an issue with 80 pages. Yeah, it was unusual for us. It was a very large topic. That we didn't just write 2 pages about it. Animal welfare is a topic that you can't just deal with from overnight. There's so many facets to this topic. You have to deal with it every day, every month. When we write articles, when we pick sources, it's essential. Would you say in the last 5 years or so that much has been done
dem Thema Aufmerksamkeit schenkt?
To make journalists more aware of the topic? We've always paid attention to them. They have to be a little more sensitized to the subject. Earlier, when we went somewhere, every rider had a riding hat on. And then come an accident, and they didn't notice that he had a riding cap on. So, if there's a riding image, it's anything against animal welfare. We work on this diligently, but things do slip through. Every day, it's part of our business every day. But it's also a very important topic. I think
Bereichen in der Pferdesportbranche, die ja extrem weit ist,
In the different areas, it really requires another look if it's good to have a critical look. Oh yes, it's very, very important that that our readers read us critically. We are critical with each other, with ourselves, but there are limits. You have to have the room to breathe.
Wie beeinflusst euch denn Tierwohl, Tierschutz als Unternehmen?
How, as a company, do you deal with animal welfare? You have products in your product line that are critically discussed. With pros and cons, as a manufacturer, how can you influence the development of your products?
Von daher haben wir das Thema nicht ganz so aktuell immer, aber
We don't always have this
wir haben auch Spuren im Sortiment.
topic
Ja,
in.
Thema, das man wahrscheinlich stundenlang noch mal extra behandeln kann. Wir achten da schon sehr, sehr drauf.
We do pay attention to this. We try to make sure that there's no manipulation on spurs. That it's not. We have lots of sponsored riders all over the world. We have to pay attention to them, how they work with their horses.
Nicht so dargestellt ist oder das Pferd nicht so behandelt wird, wie es nach unseren.
And if the horse is not treated the way it should be, that's something that we have to keep an eye on.
Sag ich mal, Pferdemenschen, die dort interagieren. Was für
So you have lots of involvement with horse people.
was kommt denn, wenn ja?
Ja, also ich kann meinen beiden Vorrednern schon mal zustimmen. Ich finde, das
I
ist
can
ein
say that
Thema,
our
was eigentlich schon immer da war, aber wo
this
es
is a current topic.
gab. Heißt also, Sender waren schon immer da für den Tierschutz, die Empfänger vielleicht vor einigen Jahren noch nicht so stark, wie es jetzt ist. Und ich finde, das ist auch eine Entwicklung, die wir auch miterleben. Das heißt, wir haben wirklich unzählige Pferde bei uns auf der Seite und wir merken natürlich auch, dass die Community da immer sensibilisiert dafür wird, denn wenn irgendwie mal wirklich
So we have a community in We Horses that we have done our best to sensitize to this topic. It's sometimes hard to define the topics, but we do like to say that if something specific is not right, that people are now at a point where they are able to be more aware of things and to find things themselves.
Und wir haben ja auch eine sehr, sehr hohe Social-Media-Reichweite.
We have also a very large social media reach, and on Facebook, if one reads us, this talk then about spurs. Are they being used badly? So it's actually much, much more than it used to be.
Aber ich sehe es andersrum.
I see it a little bit the other way around. I think that the receptors were always there, but the senders were not always there. The market has become much, much more transparent. Everybody has a smartphone in their pocket. Everybody can move around and use their smartphones at an arena. Things have become much, much more transparent. So the awareness of horse welfare is still there, but it's become more transparent.
Im Endeffekt, es werden, glaube ich,
In-
die Sender mehr als die Empfänger.
Ja, also die
Yes.
Argumentation kann ich total verstehen.
So I can understand this argument.
An sich schon einen Sender gab,
Ja,
der
ja.
aber auf dieser Streukreis vielleicht gar nicht so groß war und die
maybe that the senders were not as large or didn't have as much of a reach before. I agree with you, but I think the
Nicht der aktuellen Norm entspricht. Bei Norm
you mentioned something's not meeting norms or standards. When I hear norm, I think on the federation.
2024, wo Tierwohl, Tierschutz
So you're working with LPO 24. These are standards for animal welfare. How do you implement this? How strong is the influence from LPO on riders?
Naja, zunächst mal, ich glaube, wir müssen uns ja vor Augen halten, Tierschutz ist ja nicht etwas, was uns jetzt von außen aufgedrückt wird, sondern diejenigen, die
I think that we have to keep in mind that animal welfare is not something that's pressed on us from outside, but that we have to involve ourselves in it. So if we're talking about regulations, I'll mention two of them. The LPO, these,
wenn das vernünftig umgesetzt wird eben. Weil das alles drin, also es gab
so everything is in these as far as animal welfare. There's no animal in Germany that is so protected as the sport horse.
ist transparent mit dem, was er tut. Es gibt Leute, die
Everyone is transparent with what they do with their horses. Everybody is transparent here in what they do with their horses and that they show that they are doing it correctly. Although it's still good and important to become even more sensitive to this issue.
in dem Bereich notwendig, wo auch Momentaufnahmen gemacht werden können, weil wir ja, ne,
So
wir haben
it's important to make snapshots, metaphorically, in this time that we can see where we are.
also von jeder Sequenz habe ich eine Momentaufnahme.
From every sequence, I have a snapshot that maybe I might not see in a photo in ReiterRevue, for example, that maybe the ear is not in the right place.
Das Ideal darzustellen,
And if the N and FN can't
die Gefahr, dass wir Leute
produce a photo where everything is correct, then who can?
Zustand gewöhnen, der in der Praxis nur sehr selten eigentlich ja, dargestellt werden kann. Das ist ein Zwiespalt.
It, this is a paradox for us. You're very engaged, you're very active for the club Pferde für unsere Kinder. And this is the goal of Pferde für unsere Kinder is to bring horses in more awareness in the public. Many people are much further away from horses than they were 100 years ago.
In Berührung zu bringen.
Our club allows children to come into contact with horses. We find that this is important, and you can build knowledge on this. When people don't have knowledge of horses, then they start to have prejudices.
Und dass sie auch ein bisschen
So we hope that people will see everything we do to bring children in contact with horses. And you have projects with e-horses.
Ja, natürlich auch, aber die Frage,
And you as well, but the question for Michelle would be, what do you do?
Wir haben halt ein sehr großes Online-Magazin. Also wir haben
We have a very large online magazine
wir haben dazu gesagt, wir
for horse trading.
sag ich mal, auch
We support people before and after purchasing a horse.
Tierschutzthemen sind aber auch schon Themen, wo man wirklich die
So
Leute an der Hand nimmt,
typical animal welfare topics are also
ein eigenes Pferd habe,
parts of this process.
das gehört alles dazu. Ich glaube, viele, die vielleicht das erste Pferd kaufen,
We listen to them. We have people who maybe are buying a horse for the first time and they don't know what's in store for them.
Auftrag, dass wir da auch schon aktiv werden und sagen,
So we're very active in
überleg dir gut, wenn du dir ein Pferd kaufst,
telling
was zu beachten.
buyers, think about this, consider this is what's important, this is what you need.
Mal aufklären, weil natürlich ist ein
We also help with the financial aspects, that they know what they will need, that they have to be prepared for emergencies.
dementsprechend dem Pferd auf seiner Reise ideal verkaufen durch E-Horses natürlich, weil wir die richtigen Pferde mit den richtigen Menschen.
So we try to, eHorses tries to bring the right horse to the right people. Like I said, we have this large online magazine. We also have a big social media presence. We offer webinars. We're looking now at the topics that we can be using. We have a list of topics to choose from. We have a large reach. I see that as a mission to be able to use that reach to educate on horses. So this is actually a topic for both of you. So you have readers who maybe buy a horse for the first time, or maybe ride for the first time and then buy a horse for the first time. Or is it just for professional riders? No, we're not the magazine for professional riders. We are a magazine for horse people. You can't have enough sources of knowledge.
Dem Verkauf der Pferde eben auch
alongside horse sales. When someone buys a horse, there has to be sources of knowledge. We work with different experts from different sources to have a body of knowledge that we can then offer through our journalists.
Im Print, im klassischen Print oder
we make that in our magazine, in print magazine. It's also in webinars or on our YouTube channel or online. Marvik, you've ridden in up to the top classes. How does one reach the top riders? You've ridden successfully with certain methods that maybe some people would criticize. How can top riders be reached and convinced?
Zuträglich ist, aber halt vielleicht dem sportlichen Erfolg gefühlt über Jahre zuträglich war. Wie kann ich den würdest du sagen, was ist denn der Kernfaktor?
What would you say is the core factor by a riding pair for?
Ich glaube, dass sie das über die letzten Jahre schon sehr angepasst hat. Und eine neue Generation von Reitern, die da gerade am Hochkommen ist, die haben schon ein ganz anderes Verhältnis zu ihrem Pferd.
The new riders that are coming up, they have a different relationship to their horse. They see their horses as partners.
Kann ich auch mit dem Einsatz sämtlicher Mittel nicht zum großen Sport zwingen. Das funktioniert nicht.
Can't just make it into top sport with simple means.
Von meiner Veranlagung her schon nicht. Und genauso ist es bei den Pferden auch. Wenn ein Pferd es nicht mitbringt.
If a horse does not have the talent and not motivated itself, then it's not possible. So riders are understanding that now. We've known that for a while.
Immer wieder schulen von klein auf an, die Reiter auch schon heranzuführen. Faires, ein respektvoller Umgang mit dem Pferd.
So we try to teach from the bottom up that young riders always have respect for their horses. So in jumping, the people who don't know that much about horses, it's hard to explain to them, like about bits, for example. What do you see in jumping? Well, on one hand, there's been lots of development in that area. If you think about past riders that had such a basic education that many riders don't have today. They don't have to.
Man kann da lange drüber diskutieren.
You can talk about these aids for a lot, but like the crop, a jumping whip.
Sport, da macht man wirklich beobachtet, im großen Preis, wie wird eine Gerte eingesetzt.
But
Manchmal wird
the main problem is how is it used?
Impuls aufs Pferd zu setzen. Es geht ja eigentlich geht es um Impulssetzung und nicht um Bestrafung. Das muss einfach
Really, we need to deal more with impulse and not with penalties to motivate and not to punish.
aber es werden manche Sachen auch einfach zu Unrecht manchmal zu kritisch gesehen.
Some things have been criticized excessively.
Ich glaube, wir sprechen nicht mal
But
von der Springgerte
we're not
an sich.
talking about the riding crop
Was ich schon
in itself,
würdig finde, ist, wenn ich auf dem Abreiteplatz stehe
but if I'm at a warm-up area and I'm seeing very odd bit constructions, in Münster this happened, the winner and families with their children walked by. I don't want to talk about the jumpers themselves, the riders. So
dann sind abenteuerliche Konstruktionen zu sehen.
it was this sort of party feeling. And on the other side, Markus Ening.
Aber das war ja genau das, was ich in den Marvik quasi angesprochen habe. Was ich eben meinte, viele von den Reitern müssen dann
Many of the riders have to go back to the basics. It's the basic
ein Pferd dressurmäßig zu arbeiten.
training for this.
Dann, wie man bei Markus Ening sieht,
When I see Markus Ening or other riders,
ist man gar nicht mehr so angewiesen.
Also es ist immer leicht, bei allen Themen zur FN zu gehen, die Pferdesport sind, aber sag ich mal, grundsätzlich ist das ja auch was bei den Trainern und Ausbildern liegt.
so this also involves the training of riders
Trainerausbildungen,
and
die ihr auch mit definiert
in the training of riding trainers.
einen Platz hat.
Do you see this having a place in training? Oh, sure.
Von Ausrüstung wird in den Richtlinien thematisiert.
The use of equipment has been considered and
Ich kann das
discussed.
ich teile das und ich habe in der Vorbereitung auch mit unserem
And I agree with that.
Kasper
I-
Reiter ist ja, und er hat gesagt, ja, die ganze Gebissdiskussion,
The whole bit discussion, I've heard said, is
die wäre völlig unnötig.
sometimes it's a discussions that would be completely unnecessary if one would limit themselves to good riding.
Vermeintlichen Hilfsmittel Gebiss
It's people jump much too quickly to the equipment, and the problem is actually with the riding.
Dann gibt es ja aber das Regelwerk, sagt ja, dass
And then there's the rule that if you're in a certain class,
es Möglichkeiten gibt, Gebisse einzusetzen. Also es ist
there are limited opportunities to use bits. It's highly regulated,
sagt man, und das ist das Prinzip, was dahinter steht,
starting with 2 stars.
Reiterinnen und Reiter,
The riders,
Beispiel Springen,
for example, in show jumping, they are so well trained that they can do this. They can work with it. That's the basic principle. In the beginner level, one has to protect the horses from a little bit of abuse.
dieser Bereich, das andere offen. So, dass das nicht immer zu 100% funktioniert,
It doesn't always work 100%,
aber das ist das Grundprinzip.
but that's our basic principle, that on one side it's very limited, on the other side open.
Im Moment auch im Rahmen unserer Gremien, das sind ja viele Leute, die sich da beraten, Fachleute und am Ende zu einer
So
Entscheidung.
in our committees and our gremium, we have very many people who offer their opinions. It's still
Sein wird.
being discussed if that's the model of the future, and I think it's very good that it's being discussed. What you just said,
Bei der FN nicht so, dass da irgendwie eine Person sitzt, die irgendwas
it's not just that there's one person at the top that decides everything. The FN is based on committees, so it has to be the opinion of the majority in rules or education regulations. Yeah, this is an important point.
Wir leben dort Demokratie. So mit
We
allen,
live in a democracy.
jeder hat die Möglichkeit, jede kleine Gruppe sich einzubringen.
Everyone has the opportunity to bring forth an argument. There's not just one person that decides about a regulation, but I also sit on a committee where there are 15 different people discussing equipment, yes or no, and then it will be decided, a recommendation is made. There are 200 votes taken. These are all experts, different opinions. There are just so many different directions from riding professionals. So you have to make compromises, you have to get people together, and this is what you need to make regulations, and that changes over the time.
Und dann, so wie die LPO 2024 heute anders aussieht als das vorgängige.
And that's why the standards look differently than they did years ago, and in the future it's going to look even more different. And I find that good. And I think the discussion is very important, that different opinions are taken into an account.
Ist tatsächlich auch das Wording, also fällt mir auf.
Let's talk about the wording, that some of the terms being used have changed. Does this help us when we change the wordings of certain horse terminology? Does this bring us further, or is it just, for appearances? I think it's interesting. Maybe things are misunderstood, but you're the expert who deals with words. What do you think? Yes and no. Well, wording is very, very important.
Das Wording, das man sendet,
The words that one uses
beim Empfänger. Also,
that that has an effect on the recipients.
dass das Gegenüber
You have the chance.
gröber handelt,
It is the possible that
wenn ich aus dem Peitschenschlag eine
if you
Peitschenschnur
talk about a whip in the German word Peitschenschlag, which has the word to beat in it,
am Ende steht und fällt alles mit dem Menschen, der den Peitschenschlag
will this then motivate it or allow a person to believe that they can beat a horse with the whip?
Ich meine, Wörter sind für mich Emotion. Wörter sollen
Words are for me emotion. They arouse emotions and they reflect emotions. You can do a lot with words. When you change the wording, what it does is change the emotion. What I'd also like to say,
Ein anderes Wording da ist, glaube ich, auch ein richtiger Weg, aber trotzdem darf man nie
a different wording
mit dem Reitsport
is a good way,
der Erklärung und das sollte, glaube ich, alle
but there's still things that need to be explained in writing. To use vague wording is going to require explanations. So we're looking at the end of our time. It's gone pretty quickly. So let's just go through the round of you one last time with the same question.
Im nächsten Jahr, in den nächsten 3, in den nächsten 5 Jahren.
What in the next days, in the next year, in the next 5 years, what are the most important factors
Einfach trotzdem
and the most important effects that we need to realize as far as animal welfare?
anfängt, es fängt schon mit Aktionen an, wie Kinder und Pferde zusammenzubringen, dass Kinder einfach von klein auf an respektvollen Umgang
For me, it's that children get to know horses and have contact and communication with horses and learn to respect them when they're young.
stand gar keine Sprünge in der Halle. Da war erstmal Dressurreiten angesagt. Da wurden erstmal vernünftig Grundausbildung geübt, bevor am nächsten Tag ein
That
Sprung gemacht werden durfte.
that young riders are not allowed to push ahead and things that they're not ready for. That they don't start right with jumping. That they start with the basics, with dressage, so that they're highly qualified. And then maybe this discussion won't be necessary. These are the most important steps for me. I think that we're on a good path there, but we have a lot of work ahead of us. So, Karolina, where do I start? Where do I finish?
Ich persönlich denke, wenn wirklich jeder bei sich selbst und ganz klein anfängt, in kleinen
Personally, I think that if everybody starts by asking themselves in very small steps, why do I use this tack? Why do I not use that tack? I think that's a big step. Putting on my magazine editor glasses, we're just going to keep sharing knowledge and hope that we keep reaching people. We will keep having a critical view of riding sport and do everything we can in small steps that we can help animal welfare. That's a really nice answer. Thank you. Michelle, I agree with that completely. For me, it is in enlightening people, helping people to understand more. I have thought maybe we should go directly into the riding schools and maybe try to sensitize small children what animal welfare is and make them more aware at a young age. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think we're on a good path for that. Social media can be used for this, and we can do even more.
Ja, Aufklärungsarbeit zu leisten, die anderen noch mehr abzuholen bei dem Thema und die entsprechend zu sensibilisieren. Das sind Firmen wie wir zum Beispiel alle, das können aber auch die Reiter sein, die sich dann noch mehr damit auseinandersetzen und auch noch mal irgendwie Tipps an der Hand geben. Ich glaube, dass
There's things that we know, but maybe there's riders that are discussing things and maybe need some more enlightenment that we can help them with.
Pferdkommunikation noch
weil
verbessern.
das ist ja mittlerweile eine Offenheit dafür da und das müssen wir auf jeden Fall ausnutzen.
Absolut.
Georg, you get the last word.
Ja, ich denke, dass für die Zukunft das
I think
Thema
for the future,
ganz entscheidende Kriterium
animal welfare is going to be a deciding factor as to how we follow, as to how we carry out equestrian sport. We've got lots of good things on paper. We have to make sure that it's better implemented in practice, in sensitizing.
jeder Einzelne, die vielleicht Sie alle,
And
die
it
hier
was said everyone who is sitting here, they all have an assignment,
Reitern von dieser oder jener Gruppe,
not
sondern dass wir
not for federations or from riders, but that we present our sport, that we act as role models and work to present our sport in an honest light.
Publikum sitzen oder
So
mit ein.
how do you in the audience see that it's not just the job of the federations or top riders, it's the responsibility of everyone who works with horses, who loves horses.
Wie wir mit Pferden noch besser umgehen können, aber auch natürlich Aufklärungsarbeit.
We will be better with horses, but we also have to take a good look at why we do what we do. I say thank you very much. Thank you, Georg. Thank you, Marvik. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Caro. And thank you to all of you who came to listen.